Good morning, my name is Nathalie. I go by Nathalia. This project is about healthy communities. Healthy communities is about healthy living. It's about healthy environment, it's about connectivity between people and places, between people and public transportation. Healthy lifestyle is having access to healthy food and opportunities to exercise. And with this project, I will try to show you how we could accomplish that. I chose Lennox. It is a disadvantaged community. It's an unincorporated area within the LA County. 31% live in poverty. They have an average of $34,000 in revenue for a family of 4, high density of 21,000 per square mile, sorry. And they have one park, 5.6 acres for 23,000 people. They have gangs, but the site hosted the 1932 Olympic Games, which is a theme that could inspire exercise and health. It is located right next to LAX. It is framed by the 405, the 105, and Inglewood. To the north, you have Century Boulevard. To the east, you have Prairie. Having a background in physical education, I used the human anatomy as a natural system that works to identify in the community all the vital organs, the hypothesis being that if the organs are healthy, we should have a healthy community. The heart. After interviewing the people in Lennox, I learned that there isn't a thriving heart of town. On this zoning map, red being business, if we were to connect Inglewood with Hawthorne by turning Lennox Boulevard mixed-used, we could create a walkable activity network for the community with the park as a focal point. The park has a pool, a senior center, basketball, softball, open space, picnic tables and barbecue, and playground. For the lungs, Lennox does not have a lot of trees. It is flanked by freeways. It has airplanes flying overhead every 5 minutes to land at LAX, which produce the fine particulates of pollution that end up in your lungs. So establishing an urban forest is a must. For the kidney, liver, and water management, Lennox is heavily paved over. The water is collected in gutters. It is taken to the LA River. If we were to put bioswales on sidewalk, we would improve water management and we would improve streetscape, like you could see in the precedents of Portland and Washington. The brain. Most importantly, what does the community want? These were taken from a community outreach that was done in 2010. They want farmers market, more open space, community gardens, streetscape, traffic improvement, community identity and safety, and more senior and cultural spaces. And I think we could give them all of that. There is 24 acres of open space within the schools, but they are not open to the public. You could only access the schoolyards with a permit after hours. It would be important to have an agreement between the school districts and the community so that it would be open to the public, so that they could use this for event, exercise, picnic. It could even be a source of revenue if they were to run programs, recreation programs out of them. Thank you, Patrick. Since we don't have the schools and we don't have any vacant lots available in Lennox, I'm turning to the streets to provide them with every goal on this spreadsheet. So you'll notice I've removed farmers market, replaced it with trade produce parklet, which is a way of people to trade their oranges with the tomatoes of the neighbor, so you don't have to pay for it. So beyond improving the environment, this project will explore how we can add a green web, a green networks of open space, starting from the park, stretching into the street with green corridors, with parklets all over town, so that you create a gigantic playground. It will give them the open space for the community gardens, for the playgrounds, for the display of art, anything they want to have in them. How do we do this? It starts with connectivity. We connect the community to public transportation, to the church, to the schools, to the health food markets, allowing them to transition from using their car to walking, biking, and taking public transportation. If we put 4 to 5 parklets per streets, per quarter mile, we would have 245 parklets in Lennox, producing 24% more open space. That's a network of parklet that could have a huge amount of programming for the community to come and get together. I realized that having parklets would remove some parking on the streets. In places like San Francisco, parklets are requested by the residents and they are maintained by the residents. So it is a choice that they would make for a better quality of life. A parklet in Lennox will use 5 feet of parkway and a parking space, which gives you a parklet of 12 by 20. They would be staggered on the street, 1 per 10 homes. And this is a typical street that we have in Lennox. I would suggest to bury the power lines, and it could look like this after. So you have on the left a playground, and every Cercis canadensis, those purple trees, are a parklet. So that gives you an idea of what the new streetscape looks like and what the community identity starts shaping like. On the activity network, this is where we have businesses and homes. It's a mixed use. I would put the parklets where there is restaurants, barbershops, salon, car wash, anywhere where people have to wait or tend to linger. Oops. Sorry. The anatomy of a parklet is to have a barrier from the street so that people don't fall off into the street, because it is raised to the height of a sidewalk. It would have a reflector at the bottom. It would have wheel stopper on both ends so nobody comes bashing into it. Bike rack and shade trees. For traffic improvement and safety, the one-way street. In our body, the blood flows one way, and that's what gave me the idea. This plan has been reviewed by a traffic engineer. It would make the street safer for children to bike and walk to school. Right now, they are being driven to school. And it would reduce accident on intersection by 40%. Note that it's one way on Lennox Boulevard, only where it's mixed use between Inglewood and Hawthorne. This is a section of a residential street. For the one-way street, the width of the street remains the same. It is untouched. It just gives you more room for the bicycle to be on it. For streetscape improvement, we have the urban forest, the bioswale, and the parklet. And on one side, I have extended the sidewalk by 1 foot, reducing the bioswale to 4 feet. On major arteries, it is the speed of the cars and the volume of the cars that determines if you need to have a designated bike lane. For Hawthorne, for example, Inglewood, Lennox, you would have to have a 5 feet painted bike lane to make them more visible and safer. And the idea was from the Long Beach one-way street that used the blue painted lanes. This is a diagram where you have the streets that will have the painted bike lanes. The other ones are safe enough. There's not a high volume of cars and they're not fast. Century Boulevard to the north and Imperial do not belong to Lennox, but they should have bike paths because those are the streets that actually takes you to existing bike paths outside of Lennox, the town. So I'm showing you this slide again so you know where you're at when we're going to look at the next few slides. You're going to be looking at the center of town, Lennox Boulevard by the park. And this is what we have. The before, you have 10 feet of sidewalk on both sides, and in the center, you have the street. After, I've extended the park 20 feet onto Lennox Boulevard because I have the space. Since now it's one-way street. The sidewalks are now 12.5 feet, the parking is 7.5 feet, and you have 5 feet of bike lanes. What does it look like? So this is a section through the park, through Lennox Boulevard. Because I have an extension of 20 feet there, I was able to put a dance floor. 90% of the population is Hispanic. They love to dance. So I thought it would be a nice addition to the park. There's an olive tree, which is historical to the Olympic Games, so I'm going to get to that a bit later. And this is the before and after. So you have the park extending, the dance floor, the 2 bike lanes, the travel lane 10 feet, and it's still wide enough for the fire trucks to get through it. And on the orange stripe, it's for loading and handicap parking only. At night, this is what it looks like. So you imagine strings of light crossing Lennox Boulevard. You have twinkle lights over the dance floor. There's music, people are laughing and dancing. And now you have a heart of town with a beat. Traffic improvement and safety, other things that we could do to improve the traffic is having high visibility crosswalk. Those are the bulging of the corners at the intersection that puts the pedestrian on the street, more visible to the drivers, and it shortens the time it takes to cross the street. For seniors and for children, it's a great improvement. It could also be done at the middle of a block where appropriate, and it improves the streetscape. This is an example of a street in Lennox. It's taken very early in the morning, so there's not much traffic to come. But this is what it would look like after. It's actually close to a school. Where should these traffic improvements be done first? On the way to school. This is the learning network connection. It connects all the schools and most of the markets together. They are safe to bike on, they are safe to walk on, they are identified with the ginkgo biloba male and the liquid amber. So it tells the driver presence of kids probably on this street since you are on the learning network. And the circles is where we would have the high visibility crosswalk. The crosswalk should also be put on the activity network because this is where we have the businesses, this is where people are most likely to walk, and the network would be identified with the jacaranda, which is on the list of LA Parkway trees. For the urban forest, if we plant one tree every 40 feet and one tree in every parklet in Lennox, we will have 3,557 more trees in the community. If they are 2 inches in caliber, they will clean 18 tons of pollutant a year. Once mature, they will clean 462 tons of pollutant a year. And that is not counting the canopy that the trees create to capture all the fine particulates of pollution that would otherwise end up in your lungs. This is a small selection of the trees that could be planted in Lennox. For the learning network, like I said, it's the jacaranda and the ginkgo biloba. For the activity network, we're talking about the jacaranda, the main gateways, Century Boulevard, Hawthorne, and the rest of Lennox Boulevard, the Magnolia grandiflora. And for some texture, I've selected the podocarpus, the melaleuca, the camphor tree, and the pistache tree. For the community identity, I used the history of the site, which is the 1932 Olympic Games. It could be leveraged in many ways. It could have a panoply of programming activities for the community to come together. They could use the parklets to have mini games. The trees, the olive tree is symbolic because the Nike goddess is holding in her hand the wreath of olive, and it is on all the medals of the Olympics. They have great mottos to inspire kids to play and to exercise. It is right next to where they want to put the NFL stadium in Inglewood, where the old Hollywood Park and casino used to be. It's next to an international airport. And on that note, this is Century Boulevard. We could put all the international flags that would put Lennox on the map, that would give it sort of like an attitude. I mean, they're not just Lennox, they are part of Inglewood. They're part of all the sport amenities that Inglewood is known for. So, existing condition, we add the parklets. We safely connect the children to the schools. We connect businesses via Lennox. We complete the urban forest. And with the traffic improvements, the one-way street and the high visibility crosswalk, we now have a community that's connected, moving, exercising through green corridors and parklet. We're giving them everything they want, plus a heart of town, better air quality, and water management. I think it is safe to say that if the organs in your bodies are healthy, you would have a healthy environment and a strong community in body and mind. Thank you.